What's good, y'all? So in this video, I'm gonna be reacting to why Drake is losing it because his album officially flopped. Now, you see, I've always been Team Kendrick. It's just been that way. He's been my favorite artist favorite rapper for like 13 years. Um, but Fantastic Hip Hop is a Drake hater. Understand that. I mean, I don't think it flopped. I mean, when you check the charts, it might not be number one. Kendrick is number one. Globally and in the US, but it's still a lot of songs in the top 10. So flopped is an interesting choice. But I've heard a lot of bad like opinions about the album, but I don't know. Numbers wise, I don't think it flopped. I just don't think it probably did to what he wanted it to do personally, but you know.
Master. Despite the fact that Drake and everyone around him are in such a fantasy world that they are trying to act like this record's performance is not seeing a near 50% drop off from Drake's most recent albums, in the reality of everything, the music industry, hip hop, and the entire world is now seeing that Drake has had one of the biggest fall offs that we have seen in hip hop history. As now that the actual numbers have come out for this record and we are looking at how this entire project is holding up, it has failed more than anybody on Drake's side of things would ever want to admit. And now, before we go any further into all of this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And now, as we are really here and Drake has failed this bad with this thing, it is more important than ever to leave a like and subscribe because the Drake fans don't want you to hear about how bad this record is actually doing and how bad things are about to get for their guy now that this album has actually failed. And so, of course, with that said, when it comes to Drake,
are we surprised he released music all through the summer? This isn't like, whoa, this is the first thing he's gonna do since the beef. Let's see. It's the first album, I guess, but it's a collab album, and I don't know. This has just been like the trend. Like this is how it's been. So I'm not shocked, personally.
well, Drake is trying to act like this album belongs with the rest of his
I
number
didn't
ones
even
and is making this.
sorry. But I didn't even see people really react to it like that. Like, I mean, I don't be watching Kai like that, but maybe he did react to it. I don't know. Probably that's his boy. But Dante didn't react to it. Screw didn't react to it. Like it was just a lot of reactors didn't listen to it. So I don't know if that helped or hurt because I think a lot of the bigger influencers have a big impact on, you know, how their viewers hear music or whatever. I'm not gonna lie, which is sad, but they can definitely sway their viewers a certain way. So honestly, that might have helped for real that they didn't react to it because I just don't. From what I've heard, certain people say I don't think it was going to be like much of a positive reception for certain people that want deeper themes and stuff, and some things that he was talking about being very juvenile and everything. Like I don't know.
Seem like a success because it's Party Next Door's best performing album,
Yeah,
which
he
I mean
needed.
is only
He
because
needed.
Drake has finally taken him out of the writer's room and has actually given him somewhat
I
of
need
an
to go to the
actual role
aquarium.
and
On God.
presence that people can see here. Beyond whatever they are trying to tell you, this album has actually performed atrociously, and even with the first week numbers being 246,000, as really these numbers from streaming were barely pushing over 200,000, and the only reason why this record did nearly 250 is because Drake fans have made these pathetic plans to support the album and boost its numbers, all because they
I heard
actually
about that, which I was like, isn't that what he's suing Spot or UMG for? And Drake pages are saying to just let their phone, I guess, play it over and over and over again, which is botting basically. That doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
that this record is being
It
suppressed.
still didn't
Overall,
work
when you
very
compare
well.
this record's performance to Honestly Nevermind, which had about just as low sales and streaming numbers, but when you realize that one of these records in Honestly Nevermind had half of the tracks, I mean, when you actually measure what this music means and what it represents in the industry, beyond that record being a surprise dance album that was released out of nowhere, because of just how big this album is in terms of its track list with 21 whole songs compared to most other major records that are being put out today. Overall, what's really making Drake lose it, as it's exposing that the world is seeing just how low performing this record actually is the fact that when it comes to the one thing that Drake has talked about over and over again, which are top charting songs, As again, let's remember, from saying he's got more songs on the Billboard than the Beatles to going on a whole tangent on his collab with J. Cole where he was saying that he was one #1 song away from MJ. Drake really reached a point where he was so chart obsessed that this meant everything to him. And again, even comparing this to the previous worst Drake album in the streaming era, Honestly Nevermind, which had 3 top 10 songs and one that reached #1 when the album dropped in Jimmy Cooks. It's really poetic and so telling about how this entire moment in hip hop
Jimmy Cooks
went
was a good
and where
song,
it
though.
is going, that after Drake's last #1 song was bragging about how he is only getting bigger on these charts, and that he's ultimately gonna be bigger than the greatest artist before him, and of course this is also the song that made Kendrick come out and diss him and J. Cole in the first place. Now seeing how after Drake said this and he has to see all of his own words become Kendrick Lamar's reality because of just how much he overstepped everything on that song, seeing him now return and after we were already in an era where for multiple albums at this point, the only reason Drake was getting #1 songs in the first place was because the momentum and numbers from the projects were so big and not because he was creating massive cultural moments with singles like he used to back in the day or like Kendrick Lamar has been currently. Because the only thing people were talking about from these records were the gimmicks and not the actual music. Seeing Drake's downfall reach a point where because he has just failed to make genuinely great chart-topping songs and because nobody cares as well about these daunting
What
messes of
song
albums
is
that he is
this
trying to
for this video? I keep seeing this video, but I don't know what song is attached to it.
off now, he can't even get anywhere back near the top of the Billboard charts, and really because of this, and overall just adding to why Drake is losing it over the fact of how bad this album is doing. If his career continues to perform like this record and things just continue to spiral out of control, which it seems like they are going to, well then those lines he said about being one away from Mike are gonna stand the test of time very well, as it's looking like Drake will never be able to break that record which he was so overly confident about taking from Mike in the worst way possible. And really, with Drake currently, as everything about this SSS For You album is showing that it's not gonna last on the charts, and maybe aside from one song in a few weeks, nobody is gonna be talking about anything from this album other than how much it showcased that Drake's time in the center of hip-hop and music is up, and that he will never be able to get that massive deal that he wants from his label because what this album is doing really is just laughable compared to what Drake still believes he is worth. Overall, what Drake is now realizing is that everyone really has chose Kendrick Lamar and all of the other stars running things over him. And now because this is the reality that Drake has to deal with, and again, while adjusting to the fact that his time at the center of everything is over,
Living with opioid addiction can be a struggle, trapped in a cycle of opioid use,
That's really
withdrawal, and
unfortunate.
cravings.
there has been one thing that Drake has learned in the process of his album flopping that we are going to see a lot more from him going forward, which is that when it comes to the current state of his career, despite all of the listeners he has already lost and that
Sorry,
he is
you gotta
never going to get
speed
back,
that up.
he still has something he can benefit from, which comes down to the fact that being even more delusional than him, his loyal fans will believe anything he says and will continue to follow
they
him no
will.
matter what happens.
Oh, God.
And really, despite how bad everything else looks for Drake, he has realized that he does hold something that he can use to keep being a problem in the industry at the very least. Because really, with what Drake did when the release of this album was not going as he thought, and everything was showing that it was going to be a flop, was just spread lies about how this record is being suppressed by the music industry, and he played
It's not. It is literally on my phone. Like it's not being suppressed at all. I'm just gonna be real. It's not. I don't know why he keeps saying that. Okay. First of all, multiple people have proved it, but just to do my own research, I wanted to see. And it was right there. Like what? Like the cope. The cope is the problem.
else just because things were not pulling in the numbers that he or anybody else for that matter had been used to seeing from Drake. I mean, with somebody who's trying to compete with not just a rapper as elite as Kendrick Lamar, but a star as big as Taylor Swift in the music industry and wants to be on the same playing field in terms of what they bring in and what they're worth, the fact that Drake is now at a point where because his music is flopping and not getting the attention he wants to, that Drake is just lying and playing into weird narratives to his fans to just get them more
The
mad
same.
at
This
everybody else.
reminds me of the Heart Part 6. He just started to repeat tweets that he saw. That's it, because they didn't make any freaking sense. The song didn't make any sense. It was stupid. And that's what it feels like. Like he's seeing tweets and he's just, oh yeah. Well, you would have think he would have learned from the Heart Part 6, but no. I forget that was sometimes in my head I'm like it ended with Not Like Us, and I'm like, oh wait.
To get them to support what he is doing within a context that is not even real, with Drake having to result to this just to do Honestly Nevermind numbers with an album that has the track list length of For All the Dogs and CLB is just laughable and shows how much he has lost. And I mean, now that after all of the ridiculous things Drake has done since losing to Kendrick Lamar have really all led up to this point where we are now seeing that his albums do not work the way they once did, he better
That's
get
what
ready
I'll
to just
say.
continue.
They didn't work the way they once did. Again, selling 200 and something, 280,000. If that's a flop, well, the people that are out here selling 50 and 60 and stuff, yeah, better go back to the drawing board because what?
And number two, I mean, even that is not happening because this album just did nothing to show any single person from fans he has lost to the
There was
industry as
no
a whole.
growth.
That whatever Drake has to offer is not some of the most boring and lackluster material that you can find in an industry where fans are starting to listen to more music that is actually moving things forward and
So
innovating on
yeah,
some level
Kendrick,
more than ever.
yeah,
And again, just as
yeah.
I
I
said, we
like
were
that
going to
out of
see from
you.
Drake and
Whatever
everyone
that
around
was.
him that despite the fact that they are trying to make this album flop sound like some sort of a win, I mean, winners don't have to explain themselves as much as
Why is he talking? He got too much other things to deal with to be talking.
have been trying to, because really, every single person around Drake is spiraling, as literally GNX and its 12 songs in its first week have outperformed everything Drake and OVO have put out in their first weeks recently combined, and it's not
My
even
left stroke
close.
just
And now,
went
because of the fact that at the
viral.
end of this all, this is a group of people who don't even actually like the music they are putting out or the art of it all, and have just loved running up the charts and numbers, for Drake and his fans, they don't know how to move forward right now, because actually being left with only the music and not the numbers is something they have never experienced, and it's really just so great seeing people like AK and everyone else in OVO just completely have to redefine their identities because of this, as it's really just showing the fact that they have never been hip-hop fans and they are only Drake fans and they only like him for the most ridiculous reasons possible. And so with Drake and everything that he has been doing now, as it has already been so dull, superficial, and shallow, while we won't see it yet and Drake is not going to admit it for a very long time, down the line we are going to see Drake just detach from music when he eventually accepts the fact that he lost it all in terms of being the top guy on the charts, because for so long already, it has clearly been about nothing else besides the numbers for him, and now the fact that he is losing to everybody he has beefed with, whether that's Kendrick, SZA, and The Weeknd, his label, or so much else, as Drake is not making music that is trying to move himself and challenge his skills. Without the numbers and excitement of putting something out and seeing if it will start a trend like he
I'm
did.
not gonna lie, he is literally repeating the same thing he just said. So, let's see.
Is about to change how the entire landscape of his career and everything else in rap looks. So now with all this said, let me know.
Okay. Like I said, I wouldn't use the term flop. I would say he's not doing as good as he once was, but it seems like still for, a rapper, he's doing pretty good selling wise. So, whatever. Um, so he still got a lot of songs in the top 20. This is just probably an ego hit because it used to be it didn't matter. He was number one, period, point blank. It did not matter. And the fact that the person that he lost terribly to is number one is probably a big issue. Or number two, or number three, or pushing him out of the top 10 quick. All of this is an ego hit, and I don't think he knows how to handle it. Regardless how long it's been going on, he don't know how to handle it. He's made a lot of weird moves from it, and that's what I think it is more than anything. But if we're gonna say it flopped, I feel like we're, you know, what is it his lowest selling album? Then that sucks. But I mean, I don't know what he would have expected. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this is just a humbling experience to him. Hopefully, at some point, he'll just accept it. But he just keep doing weird stuff, especially with that lawsuit. Like I said, the biggest reactors don't want to react to the shit. They don't. So you lost some probably attention that could have been gained from that. But whatever. Anyways, y'all like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Follow me on Instagram, and I will see y'all in the next one.